So I'm on my morning run and I thought I would just take a break and record something quickly. Um, I am not really a video person. I have a podcast called Speakings and I speak off the cuff basically uh, for 15 to 25 minutes usually, and just see what arises from the spontaneity of an oral means of communication, which is very refreshing and different from the kind of work that emerges from my literary writing. I'm also like a poetic literary writer. I've written a philosophical memoir, philosophical poetic, I guess, and am working on a few other projects at the moment along that line as well. And I'm a PhD student in philosophy, and I'm currently teaching philosophy of technology-esque classes and working on my dissertation. So a lot of what I work on seems disparate from the outside. And I've had people ask me, what is the guiding thread through all your work? Because it seems like your literary poetic work is also quite spiritual. I also practice meditation and non-duality, sort of practicing and cultivating the awareness of everything as being one. Look how beautiful this is, even with the power lines. So what is the link between this kind of spiritual disposition, the more literary, poetic, creative disposition, and this much more analytical, scientific, and philosophy of technology work? And I think one reason I was interested in philosophy of technology is because it really effectively ties all these threads together of my interests. And, there's so many branching off points for philosophy of technology, so much to talk about, so much that interests me, so much that I love teaching to my students. But one thing that I think is key to understanding my work and the way I understand my work is recognizing that speech is also a technology, perhaps the most primordial or original technology. And it's a technology that reveals the world in certain ways and conceals the world in certain ways, as Heidegger talks about this revealing, concealing couplet. And when I say that I am spiritual, I don't actually mean that there's any content to my beliefs about the world. In fact, belief itself is a technologically mediated phenomenon. That we don't really have belief without language, and beliefs are kind of vehicles for language. I treat beliefs very pragmatically as temporary vehicles for affecting a certain outcome. And that's beautiful. Belief can be very powerful. But, hi bird. Oh, that's so cool. I don't know what that bird is. I want to learn bird names. But speaking of speech, there's something revealed and something concealed, something gained and something lost when we know the names of everything. And that's the poet in me, right? You name something and you bring it into existence and into reality, and there's something beautiful and creative about that. But you also create duality, you create distance, you create a sense of separation. So separation is beautiful, and it's also fundamentally unreal, and something about speech, and then later the reification and codification of speech in the technology of literacy ends up solidifying this separation further. So I'm interested in philosophy of technology because I like playing with all kinds of technologies and seeing how they mediate selfhood and reality and attention in particular ways. I have serious concerns about many technologies like social media, AI, and others. And that's one reason I don't like creating videos, because there's something that seems very flattening about the screen, very visual in a way that can be reductionistic. We are already visually biased creatures, so I don't like to amplify that bias further by creating videos. But I'm also trying to play with it and see where it takes me and adapt a bit so that I can hopefully get my work on various platforms and connect with more people. Um, and speech, as one of the most fundamental technologies, can also be suspended, and that's where meditation comes in for me. Is it's simply a way of accessing a version of reality that is a little bit less mediated. There still can be levels of mediation within meditation, and what I mean by mediation is there being a kind of interface between you and the world, whether that interface is language, thought, um, more material artifact or technology um, like a smartphone, a pen, um, a car, right? These are all forms of mediation that mediate our experience of the world. So, yeah, um, meditation for me and whatever I refer to as spirituality in my life is simply a way of accessing a different kind of reality that is a little less mediated, a little bit more sensorially alive. Something that happens with technologies is they all sort of have a tendency to distance ourselves from the senses. And I think that to be human and to be fully alive is to be fully embodied. And we are in desperate need of reviving and just unmuffling the senses. And the senses are often considered a gateway to non duality because there's something inherently non dual about the senses before they've been separated through thought. So when I talk about spirituality, I don't mean that I have a set of beliefs about the world that are different from other people's beliefs. Not even secular beliefs, because that's also a set of beliefs. When people say like, "Oh, I'm a secular Buddhist," or I believe in secular spirituality," that itself is a kind of codification of the world that I think is inherently unspiritual. That's me gatekeeping, but um, for me, the spiritual is just a suspension of beliefs and practicing that suspension in order to awaken a broader perceptual awareness and aliveness. So something similar is happening for me with ritual. Um, I love ritual. I think it's the first form of symbolic speech or symbolic mediation. It comes through the body. And so there's this beautiful expressivity that can be opened when we just allow ourselves to act in an embodied awareness without assigning any beliefs to it, without assigning any right or wrong and saying this is the right way to do a ritual, this is the right way to worship the divine or something. For me, ritual is, again, it's like the first scaffolding of symbolic systems of intellectual awareness before we get spoken speech, before we get later written language. So I play with ritual. I play with ritual in my writing, in my other work, and just in my life. It's a fly. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to record a video about these various levels of connection with reality and the contingent nature of belief. And now I'm going to get back to my jog and back to my day.